I haven't filmed a video in here in like 3 weeks, and boy, does it feel good to be back. Welcome to Ask MandRproductions episode 227, the series where I answer your questions. If you have a question you want to answer on next week's episode, make sure you ask down in the comments section below, and if you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button. Anyway, this video is sponsored by Squarespace, so big thanks to them. We'll have links for them in the description below, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in the video. Anyway, first question comes from Brick Explorer, who says, what do you think about the leaked Fast and Furious and James Bond cars? Personally, I love them. So for me, Fast and Furious, never really seen it. The only thing I really know or care about for Fast and Furious is the horrendous ride at Universal in Orlando that we do every year at Halloween Horror Nights because there's never a line for it. And as far as James Bond goes, I think that's a much cooler thing. It's interesting to be getting a James Bond minifigure. I think that's by far the most notable thing. I'll definitely be picking this set up because it'll only be $20 or $25, unlike the other Aston Martin that was like $150, and like, I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me, especially without a minifig, and this set with the minifig is definitely going to get me in the door. I just think it's interesting to get a James Bond minifig. He is obviously about the intercourse, violence, you know, shooting the bad guys type of thing. Like, he's a character that embodies a lot of that, and like all the like, I went to one of the movies, probably like 2006 to 8-ish era. I had to be between 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, whatever. And literally my grandmother, like, we walked out of the theater. Apparently it was so bad for young me. So I find that to be an interesting thing that they're doing James Bond sets when, like, that is my kid experience with James Bond. Personally, I don't care, right? But, like, Lego's got this moral compass where things like that matter to them. So it's just interesting to see. Charles says, what is your opinion on the LEGO Shrek Ideas project that hit 500 supporters? Do you think it could become a real set? Certainly, if LEGO Shrek gets to 10,000 supporters, it definitely has some real good odds. I think LEGO Shrek is far more popular than a lot of things they've done, both just not through ideas and through ideas. So LEGO Shrek would be a great theme, and it's also something that if they ever did like a Universal minifig series would probably just show up there instead of having to do a set, because, like, I don't know, you could do Shrek Swamp, but it'd be a tough, like, kind of like the Winnie the Pooh set, maybe, would probably be a good thing to, like, model it based off of, where you'd get Fiona, Shrek, Donkey, Lord Farquaad, of course, the Gingerbread Man. Maybe those are your 5 characters. Not sure if there's any more that I'm leaving out as big. Puss in Boots, of course. So, like, I don't know. There's some good ones there, but yeah, I would love that. Caleb says, when is the best time to look for LEGO clearance at Walmart and Target? And this is a question that no longer really has an answer, to be honest. I mean, I think most people would still say after Christmas because that's when they're trying to get rid of anything they have left. But the reality of it is the LEGO market has changed. When, I started really going into clearance hunting probably 2014, 15, 16, things were pretty, like, cyclical, where you would have your clearance around 4th of July and you'd have your clearance right after Christmas. Actually, the after Christmas clearance I had been going for since like 2009, 10, so I've been doing it a long time. But that has really changed in the last few years because a lot more people are buying Lego. There's usually a lot less left to be clearanced out. And what I'm also noticing now is stores like Walmart and Target, the clearances aren't as deep discounts as they used to be. So, and that's from a starting position. So, there still are going to be the odd ends here and there where you find really good deals, but it is ultimately not as easy as it used to be, and I cannot see it becoming easier in the foreseeable future. So when is the best time to look? Whenever you're there, and otherwise I just think it's mostly a shot in the dark as to when things go on clearance at this point, because as far as I can tell, there is no longer kind of a simple calendar you can kind of follow where you can be like, oh yeah, middle of July, things are going to go on clearance. That just doesn't feel like it happens anymore. Canada Brick says, I hope everyone realizes that the 4+ ATST is the greatest set of all time, and 247 people agree, apparently. Now, this set did leak the other day, and I was pleasantly surprised by what I saw. The minifigure selection looks really solid. I love that Scout Trooper design, so it never hurts to keep seeing him in more sets, because I was, like, afraid that would become an expensive figure, and I just want a lot of them at some point. And then we have a new Ewok, an ATST driver, and they look wonderfully detailed for a 4+ set. The Ewok tree, obviously, like, I compare this set to, like, 2011's Ewok tree, and it's night and day. Obviously, this is not a good tree for collectors. It's a tree for 4-year-olds, and it definitely shows. The ATST, though, surprisingly, doesn't look as much like an ATST for 4-year-olds as I expected. I don't know why. This just kind of looks okay. It looks like the 2001 ATST, like if you did if LEGO had not created very many new pieces from 2001 until now, this is what you would expect like a regular ATST to look like. Obviously, they have much better techniques, and they do a lot of great things like with the Hot ATST that looks phenomenal. It almost feels like they tried to do a classic ATST with modern parts and not go too far with the design, and that's what you end up with here. So just an interesting parallel, but I think the set's going to be $30, or with the price change, $35, which certainly people are going to find to be pricey, and yeah, but a cool set for 4-year-olds, I guess. Clip Fisto says, did you ever consider that LEGO might not be doing their box art exactly like Hasbro, and that the blue strip with Vader will be used for all Skywalker Saga movies? Did I consider it? Yes. Do I like it or agree with it? No. Is it probably the way they are doing it? Yes, but again, LEGO doesn't know how to do box art, and I'll explain why again here in a second, because you say they use, or like, they probably intend to use the blue strip for anything Skywalker Saga, but then they contradict themselves time and time and time again. One second, I want to read the rest of your comment. That would make the most sense to me, and it explains why the clone blister pack and Obi-Wan's ships were wrong. And I agree. I agree with myself saying they're wrong. Of course I agree. I think they're wrong. I think that they should have individual movie-based art, as they're already doing individual show-based art, and I think the biggest thing to show that this whole thing is ridiculous and that LEGO doesn't have a defense is if you look at the ATT, which is obviously an Episode 3 set from Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. Even the designer at LegoCon said we based this set off of Revenge of the Sith, as if that wasn't already obvious by both the box art, Phase 2 Cody, 212 Troopers, etc. That set was given Clone Wars box art for no reason. So, yeah, it baffles me beyond belief why they can't get it right, or what I consider to be right, I guess. It's just one of those things that, at the end of the day, is very trivial and doesn't actually matter. Most people don't care. I do, and that's just the way it is. But, yeah, Clone Wars box art in Episode 3 set. What more could you expect from the LEGO Star Wars design team? Mate says, what is this year's best Star Wars set in your opinion? I'm going for the ATT. Love the work. Thank you so much, man. And let me know in the comment section below what y'all's favorite Star Wars set of the year is. Now, there is still one looming with the potential UCS or Master Builder Series set coming out later this year, which I still think is going to be a UCS Razor Crest like we had talked about last week. But if that set doesn't end up being my favorite, there are a few contenders, and I do a worst to first every year, so that's when you'll really find out what I think is the best set. But the Snowtrooper Battle Pack is on the list. It's on the short list of like top sets of the year in my opinion. Also, the Dark Trooper Hallway I think is very good. And then we have another couple contenders like the Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter, but I don't really think that's really contending. Truly, the Inquisitor Transport Scythe is really up there. I mean, I can't wait to get it in hand, but it does look like a top set of the year contender for me. And I know a lot of people probably picking that ATT because of Phase 2 Cody, but I still think this set has issues. It's missing the Crab Droid. The figures that don't need holes in the head have holes in the head, even though they have this existing mold. I mean, the ATT does look a little bit awkward to me, but I still, you know, until I have it in hand, I'm not going to like have a finalized opinion on it, obviously, so we'll get to that later down the road. But like, ultimately, to me, the ATT is a more imperfect set than the Inquisitor Transport Scythe. Like, I can just look at the ATT and pick out more flaws and things that should have been fixed, versus the Inquisitor ship, which I think is about as perfect of a set as you can get. But like I said, there's still the looming UCS Master Builder Series set, which has a real good chance to take that top spot for the year for me. So keep your eye out for the worst to first video coming in November-ish. But until then, my tentative top 3 are the Inquisitor Transport, the Snowtrooper Battle Pack, and the Dark Trooper Attack. And you know, I know you mentioned the ATT. For me, as much as, you know, I was obviously hoping for Phase 2 Cody and really helped push to get it done, and I think the reason that it's here is because of us, the fans, asking for it. That doesn't make it the best set to me. So, yeah, it's cool. Very excited for it. But, yeah, those are my faves. The Phase 2 helmets being used here are a major letdown. Almost as much of a letdown as the new videos featured on my website, badmnrvids.com, that I made using Squarespace. Squarespace is an easy-to-use website building tool that allows you to create your own website and help establish your own web presence. I use it to create badmnrvids.com, a place to showcase all of my worst, secret, and low-quality videos. I've expanded the site using Squarespace's web page building tools to add some new bad videos under the bad news page. Their easy-to-use video tools allow me to publish my previously unlisted videos for you to watch right now. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/MandR, link in the description, for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and links below. Mr. Meatbeater says, do you think it's possible for us to see Phase 2 Cody in something like an ATT microfighter in the future, or do you think we'll only get him in the big set? So I think that would be the best option here for LEGO to follow through with, right? They released the Clone Commander last year in the Gunship $350 set. Then they released him in the $15 minifig pack, and he's apparently going to come in the $45 advent calendar this fall. Why Phase 2 Cody isn't in the advent calendar instead to make him more accessible beats me, but that, like, they put that figure in 3 sets. I would expect Phase 2 Cody to at least make it into another set at some point in time that's on the cheaper end of things. I certainly don't want him in a battle pack or anything like it. I don't want a 501st battle pack-esque set with 2 12 troopers and Commander Cody. That to me would be ridiculous. It defeats the purpose of army building at this point when you end up with 100 Phase 2 Codys. Like, you can put him in a cheap set. It doesn't have to be an army builder set, if that makes sense. So the microfighters are obviously the best option there, and I think 2 microfighters for 2023 that I would love to see are a microfighter ATT with Phase 2 Cody, as well as a microfighter Justifier, Cad Bane's ship, with Cad Bane, because Cad Bane is only in that $170 set as well. So I think making those figures a lot more accessible by putting them in microfighters would be a pretty good option down the line. But, you know, LEGO, they might just not release the figures ever again, and it's impossible to know. Mason says, what do you think of the new Avatar set? Is it worth it? And finally, do you think they will continue the theme? Keep up the good work and can't wait to see the comparison video for the ATT. Me either. The ATT is definitely one that I cannot wait to compare, but the Avatar set, it's $150. Oh my lord. I haven't given this set like any real look, so this will be my mostly first impressions. I mean, I've seen it in passing, but I just didn't care about it, and I still really don't, because I saw the movie maybe 10 years ago or whatever. The biggest connection I have to Avatar is I went to the Disney Avatar Land in Orlando, and that was pretty cool, and this kind of reminds me of that with the floating rocks section. The rest of it, I honestly couldn't care much for. I think it is really interesting to see LEGO bringing back the long legs for the Avatar characters and the long arms. That was something that I was under the impression that they had said they wouldn't be bringing back, because people brought it up when they did Woody again from Toy Story, and they didn't use the long legs like they originally did, and that's what the long legs and long arms were originally developed for back in like 2009 and 10. And yeah, I mean, I think it works here. It's also like one of those things that's like, could the long legs have worked on the Kaminoan and translated over to Star Wars? Because the Kaminoan is obviously substantially taller than a figure like Obi-Wan Kenobi. However, in the set, that's not translated as well as it maybe could have been with these longer legs. Regardless, back to the Avatar set, the tree looks really cool. I mean, the horse thing looks really cool, and people that know Avatar are mad at me for calling it a horse thing. I don't care. Horse, unicorn, shark fin, backwards shark fin. I don't know. There's a lot going on there. And then we have like a Ninjago dragon. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, this is just not a set that appeals to me. My bread and butter as far as sets that I typically find appealing are going to be sets that are of ships, and typically that ends up being Star Wars, you know, just vehicles and things instead of like a scenery. Usually scenery flops for me, and here it's a flop for me. Is it worth it? That's up to you, but for me, I won't be buying it. Pokemon says, I think 5 clone troopers in this set is the most we've ever gotten. Dropship with ATOT, am I a joke to you? You know, sometimes I just forget, and the ATOT was one of those things I forgot about. I said I think 5 clone troopers, so I had the like prerequisite of maybe something else is out there, and that dropship with ATOT was just hiding behind the moon. So, but yeah, I don't think we'll ever get a set with more clone troopers. Like, that's probably the most we'll ever get is 8 then. Even so, I don't think there's been other sets with like more than 8 stormtroopers or anything like that I can think of off the top of my head, of course. So yeah, it's not a joke to me. I swear, it's a serious set, but yeah. Callum has an interesting take here, and I have an interesting retort to him. He says, if a new Thrawn is made, then the value of the old one will absolutely tank. It was pretty widely available at the time, and the only reason it's valuable now is because people have no other option. That is certainly true, and pretty obvious, I think, in most cases. Also, it's a pretty bad figure, wrong badge, and inaccurate skin color. Also, any new version will be better and more desirable. Okay, so a couple things. Yes, he's inaccurate, and I'm very glad I did not care about Rebels in 2017, because I would have been very pissed that Thrawn was inaccurate. That aside, it's kind of irrelevant at this point, I guess. They make better versions of figures all the time, and the older, worse versions of figures do often retain their value. It just depends on what it is. So I don't think it's an absolutely foregone conclusion that old Thrawn will tank in value. And I think another great way to look at this is if you look at something like Cloud City Boba Fett, right? You have the original Cloud City Boba Fett, and then, of course, they've come out with many, many Boba Fetts since then, as well as a Cloud City Boba Fett, a Boba Fett with arm printing and leg printing and everything in the UCS Slave 1. Some very nice and objectively better Boba Fett minifigures, yet this old classic one just sits there retaining its value. And there are other examples like this, but I think Cloud City Boba Fett is just the easiest one to pick and pull that everybody knows about. And, you know, I don't think Thrawn will have that same, you know, lust I don't think the original Thrawn from 2017 is something that people love because they think it's a cool figure. People just love it because it's the only Thrawn, and I agree with you on that front. But that's not to say that it's impossible that that doesn't come around to change someday if the new Thrawn is substantially different and not as good. And like it just depends. It's hard to know. But I think the Inquisitors are a good example of the other side of things, where the new figures for the Inquisitors came out and it tanked the value of the old ones because the new ones are on par, if not slightly better, than the old ones. And so because they're so similar, the price of the old ones dropped and will continue to drop once the set hits shelves, because then the market will actually become inundated with the newer figure. As of now, you can't actually buy the newer figure. You can just pre-order the sets. So yeah, I think it's interesting to like look at that. I definitely do think Thrawn will go down in value, but I don't think it's as foregone a conclusion as some people might want it to be or think it is, because there are plenty of examples where that doesn't happen. Patrick J says, how well have your LEGO sets held up in your garage? Should I look into getting a portable AC unit? I have an entire empty garage that's pretty well insulated, still hot at times being in South Carolina, and I've considered setting up my sets on display with new shelving. So it sounds like your garage is the perfect place to display some things, but obviously without AC, I would stay away from that. I do think the portable AC unit is a good idea during the summer or warmer months. You could certainly just run it from like 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. It shouldn't be too much of a strain on you at that point. As far as the third car garage we have here, we do have AC out there. It's just wired into the house or whatever, so it's not something that I have to worry about personally, like whether or not it's gonna get too hot out there, because it has AC vents running to it as well. So it is kept at a reasonable temperature, although it is a bit warmer typically than like this room, but it's, you know, more than good enough to keep everything from like melting away or getting too hot or something weird happening to the boxes, you know, just things that people might worry about at a collector's level. So I think a portable AC unit would be a real peace of mind as well, because the thing is, like, if you don't do that and everything gets really warm and, you know, weird things start happening, like, you know, you're not going to find out till many months down the line, and then all of a sudden it's too late. Like, so everything that I have currently in my collection is kept in, you know, air conditioning. You know, I have the storage unit, which is indoors, the third car garage, which has air conditioning, of course, my bedroom, so everything is clean on that front. And it's something that, for the peace of mind alone, I would highly recommend keeping everything in an air-conditioned, controlled, to some degree, environment. Jeremy wants to know why there are no pre-orders for the ATT, and he says he's afraid he's never going to get one if he doesn't pre-order. So why is there no pre-order for the ATT? Don't know. LEGO doesn't explain any of this stuff. They just arbitrarily choose what's available for pre-order and what isn't, and for whatever reason, they decided the set that the fans want the most won't be available for pre-order. So bravo, LEGO, well done again. You can direct your complaints to LEGO on that if you guys would like. They'd probably like to hear your feedback. And then the other thing is, you're afraid you won't get one if you don't pre-order. Yeah, you might not get one in the first week or the first month if you don't pre-order, but then again, if there aren't pre-orders to begin with, everyone's on a level playing field come day one, of course. If you're on Lego.com at midnight on release day, you're gonna get one. If you're on Target.com or whatever, whenever it shows up, like, you're gonna get one. Show up to your local Target on the first day or local Lego store, you should be able to get one. It's a mass-produced set. It's not a limited number set. The thing with Lego sets is they're typically available for a year or two. So I know recently there have been some exceptions, like the Republic Fighter tank has been exceptionally difficult to get, and the Clone Trooper minifigure pack has been exceptionally difficult to get. But for the most part, in the general scheme of things, everything is just kind of available, and at some point supply catches up with demand. File First battle packs are pretty easy to get now. They were very hard to get to begin with, but of course now you can get one. And so I would not be afraid of just never being able to get one. I think that's a bit of a drastic point of view to have at this point, because it's just not going to be that way. Sure, it's going to be a popular set. A lot of other fans like yourself are going to want one, but ultimately at the end of the day, come November, December, maybe January, February, they'll be pretty easy to get, if not before then. And like I always do, I'll post on my Instagram story or my community tab when those become available with affiliate links so that you guys can hop on and get them as fast as possible. Luke says, what did you think of the Kenobi show? Do you think it was unnecessary, or do you think it added value to the overall story of Star Wars? Honestly, there's only like a couple things that I think were like huge positives for it. It was pretty cool to see like the Inquisitors kind of working together, I guess, and that was neat. I was kind of hoping they would fly with their lightsabers, but that never happened. One of the things that I saw someone else comment about was that it like ruined Leia because Leia and Obi-Wan interacted. That I don't think is a fair point of view, because Leia in episode 4 goes, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." And I think it adds a lot to that part of the story, because Leia was saved by Obi-Wan in this time period around the age of 10. So of course, when she's like 20 or whatever, come A New Hope, Obi-Wan is her only hope, and she needs Obi-Wan's help because Obi-Wan helped her before. And I think that is actually a kind of cool part about the Kenobi show that I just didn't expect at all coming into it. And we're getting at least one cool Lego set out of it in the Inquisitor ship, and one not cool Lego set in it with the Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan set. But like, generally, I think it was a fine show. You know, I think last week I called it a 7 out of 10. Maybe with the finale in mind, it rounds up to an 8 out of 10. It just, I don't know, it wasn't a necessary show. But I also don't think that everything that Disney Plus and Disney is making with Star Wars needs to be like the absolute most necessary thing to make. Jacob says, why did LEGO stop making chrome lightsaber hilts? Quite simply, it's a quality thing. The chrome would chip and it would look really bad over time. Obviously out of the box it looked really good, but now they have their different style of chrome, which is certainly not as accurate, but I think it's a fair medium to have reached at this point in time, and it's not something I see improving too much from where it is because of quality issues. The Awakened Builder says, what are your thoughts on the recently announced plans for LEGO to build its first factory in the United States in Virginia? Yeah, they're putting a lot of money into a U.S. factory, which I think is going to be ultimately a good thing. I think we've seen some really tough times for some LEGO sets recently, like the Clone Command Pack and the Republic Fighter Tank, where they are just impossible to find right now in America. Like, they are not in stores at all or online at all. Obviously having more production capacity is going to be a good thing as far as having better availability. So fingers crossed that that is kind of what they're looking to do with this type of factory, is to help make things more readily available in America in cases like that, or maybe the File First Battle Pack early on type of stuff. So that is definitely something that I think bodes well. I don't really know what else a factory might mean for America, honestly. I mean, good jobs for people, I suppose. Obviously, I'm not going to be applying. And then there's another little thing about this that I really hope it does. I hope it makes LEGO more accessible for smaller toy stores, because right now in America, it's like small toy stores carrying LEGO is like few and far between, and there are less and less of them all the time carrying LEGO. There's quite a few stores that I've been into in the last couple years that 4 or 5 years ago carried LEGO and just had to stop because they didn't have a big enough profit margin on it or something. So hopefully it opens up the possibility to bring LEGO into some of those smaller boutique whatever stores in America, because that's something that's really missing here compared to what I feel like it's like in Europe. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed this Ask MandR Productions. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe. If you have a question you want to answer on next week's episode, leave it in the comment section below. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, and check out our sponsor, Squarespace, with the links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.